Hello, and welcome to Faith on Dirt Roads. Today I'm coming to you from our patio on our ministry compound, and in just a few weeks, the kids will be out of school, and these picnic tables where I'm sitting at right now recording this are going to be full of our students, and so I just can't wait to be able to spend time with them after being away for so long and just getting to see them. So today on our episode, I want to dive a little bit deeper along the way in challenges that missionaries, expats, and ministries face while living in Jinja. Something you may not realize is that tourism rates are rising more and more. Now, there are pros and cons. I'm going to just go ahead and take it a step further and say I've also seen this with short-term mission trips and teams. Now, look, I am not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. And if you've ever done this, we all have room to grow. And I believe that we can learn from each other's experiences. And maybe this will even change future actions that you would maybe do if you went into a country not your own, or you learned that someone else is going to, and you could even just give them a little bit of information. So people flood the streets of Jinja to visit the source of the Nile, to go whitewater rafting, ATVing, taking a boat ride on the Nile. They go bungee jump, and then they can rest and relax at various guest houses that have pools. You can enjoy a slower pace of Jinja compared to the crazy busy streets of Kampala. And this is great for local businesses, and we love seeing these restaurants filled daily with new customers, and we love seeing our local favorite craft vendors selling items and being able to provide for their families. All of these things are definitely big pros, and we're excited to see tourism as it truly increases profit and helps our friends who have businesses. But there are some cons, and I'm going to share some of them that you may not even realize can happen. Now, let me be clear. This is just what I think. I am not an expert on this, and I don't claim to be. But these are just my experiences over the last 11 years of living here. I have seen that maybe tourism or even short-term mission trips and teams, they kind of feel guilty when they're here. They think, oh, look how much I have. And they look at kids or people on the streets or wherever they're traveling and think that they need to help them or that they need to save them. This need to do something. And while they assume they're helping, they can actually be creating an endless cycle of problems that they don't realize. Now, today I'm going to talk mostly about people on the streets because that's just the experience I've had. And there are many kids living on the streets for various reasons, as we heard some of these reasons in the previous podcast with Tara. Now, once again, I'm going to say this because I know people listening will be like, ugh, she's an expert. No. And you know what? Tara and I do not claim to be experts on this topic. Rather, we are truly speaking from our own experiences as they have come up. If you've visited Jinja and you've been on Main Street and gone to a popular pharmacy, you might remember seeing an older lady, a Jaja, who, after I've asked many Ugandans about this, over the years, they've said that she begs every day for as long as they can remember. This is a way that she uses to survive, and she always comes up to people, and if you've ever been in the pharmacy trying to check out, she will stand there and hold out her hand and wait for you to give something. And that's a problem that's been created. And we, as tourists or anyone who gives her money, is enabling her. Now, I don't know what the solution is, but I do know that if I have Ugandan friends telling me, hey, don't do that, it's going to enable her, then I listen. I have sat countless times at the deli, one of our favorite restaurants on Main Street, and we've watched someone give 20,000 shillings for a bunch of bananas that should have cost 5,000 shillings. So you're probably listening to this and think, what's the big deal that someone gave $6 for something that should have cost $1.50? Well, I live here, and to pay $6 for a bunch of bananas that usually would cost me $1.50, I'd go broke pretty quick. But also, having an organization, if I pay $6 instead of the real price of $1.50, I'm not really being a good steward of the money God has provided from donors to our organization. Over the holiday, we typically purchase 3 bundles a day, 3 times a week. So that would be $54 a week instead of the real price of $13.50. So I'm trying to be God honoring and using the money in the best way possible. And there are some food vendors that sell bananas to travelers at taxi parks, high traffic junctions, but most of the time, these kids are selling and they're being sent out by someone else. So they are not receiving the profits themselves. One thing is, it seems that they typically will target their customer to be a Westerner. I have asked a few of the kids that we see on a daily basis on the streets, hey, why did you run past a really well-dressed, working Ugandan to run to me to sell? And a lot of times, if I can get them to answer and they're honest, well, Ugandan won't pay me what the price is. And so I always say, well, if that's not the real price, why are you charging me more? But my point being, if a Ugandan friend tells me, no, you don't pay that, then I have to listen to them and say, hey, no, I'm not going to hike up the market price, and I'm going to be respectful to my Ugandan friends. One thing that I've learned living here is that people work to feed themselves for the day. So if they make their day rate and they come home and they're able to feed themselves, they feel like that was a win. And it is, 100%. However, how do you teach someone that there is more for them and that they were created for more? And I don't have the answer to that. But I can tell you that by these kids thinking that they have a job, it's harder to get them off the streets and even potentially back in school or with their families if the situation allows. The other day, we were locking our car before we went into the supermarket, and we had some younger street kids come over, and they just kind of surrounded us, which is normal, no big deal. And they were all saying various phrases like, you give me, mama help me, you support me, mama feed me, etc. We just say no, we continue walking, we say, not today, no, and we don't hand out cash. And as we walked past them into the supermarket, we could see that another Westerner had given them shillings. Now look, I'm not trying to be mean when I say no, but what did that Westerner do to help those kids? It was a quick payout, and it kind of validated that, hey, we can keep doing this. Look, we're getting paid. In the past, if a kid was persistent on saying, I'm hungry, help me, I'll walk to a chapati stand that is actually right next to the supermarket, and I'll offer to buy a Rolex or a chapati. Here's something that I've always found just bizarre to me. Interestingly enough, I've offered to do this more times than I can remember, especially back in my early days, because I never wanted to give out money. But do you know, I have never bought something because when I walk there, the kids go, no, we want money. I don't want to enable a kid to be able to buy drugs, alcohol, fuel, anything that could hurt them even worse. And so I've always just said no. But if you offer to buy a staple food here that most people eat and they say no, I can't help past that point. So I don't know how we get them back in school. I don't know how we help people who live on the streets be back with their families if possible. I'm judging Westerners and tourists, and even mission trips. I would just ask you to truly think about what you're doing the next time, because I'm now going to give you an example of the damage it can do. So, now, a few days after Tara and I recorded our podcast, Let's Experience Hope, she sent me a text that said, look at what someone did. And all she sent was pictures of a young teenage boy's hands. So John had been on the streets, and he was given a $50 bill. And I'm assuming that whoever this Mzungu, as we are called here, Westerner white person, did this, they thought that they were going to be helping out John. Look at me, I've given John a $50 bill, whatever they were thinking in their head, I don't know. Because we don't know who this person is. He couldn't give us much more than, it was a white lady. He, of course, like anyone else, probably. Like, if I get something new, I go, hey guys, look what I got. He went and showed some people, look guys, look what I've got. And so as he's showing off this $50 bill, people tried to set him on fire, and his hands were completely scorched. Now, he went to a local clinic here, and they sliced the back of his hands open to relieve the infection, as they thought they were trying to help him. And then, as most of you may not realize this, but when you go to various doctors and places, you carry a small paperback little notebook. And it's your medical book, and it's where doctors and whoever writes things in it so that you can carry it with you from place to place, because our medical files aren't digital as far as being able to just quickly share them between offices. And so on his paper, as Tara read it, he had been told to go to Kampala, and the solution would be to amputate his hands. Now, this has been a couple weeks, and Tara has been working to get this young man's hands treated and cleaned and debrided, and they're looking so much better. But when I say that this is a problem, I'm not making it up. Someone handing someone on the streets a $50 bill that they would then have to figure out how to go get exchanged is not helping. It's hurting. So there is a great resource that when you're coming on the mission field, we are often told, hey, everybody go read, and it's called When Helping Hurts. But if you ever want to know kind of what it is to go on mission and do things, maybe go read that. But once again, ask your local friends. For me, it's asking a Ugandan. You might be somewhere else. Ask them. Don't hurt. The goal is to help. So, I don't have a solution, and it's really hard when there's so many street kids that even get brought in from other towns. Police will randomly do roundups of street kids, and it'll get quiet for a little bit until they venture and find their way back. Then there'll be lots of kids that are from another town because the police rounded them up in their area and brought them to Jinja. Whatever the case may be, I don't know, but we've got to work together, and that more people in town will also be able to understand that it's not healthy to just hand out money. Thank you for listening to another episode of Faith on Dirt Roads. If you love missions, know me, or have questions, and are curious about life in Jinja, Uganda, visit our website at faithondirtroads.com and send a note to join me on an episode. I hope you'll subscribe and share the podcast with your friends and family. See you down the road.